parent. All right, you're live right now. All right, cool. Well, hello everyone. It is January 29th, 2023 on a beautiful, what is it called? I guess outside it's a little bit rainy. I woke up to it raining all day, but it's a beautiful day though outside. Today I'm joined by no other than TJ from KnifePlay. How are you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Like I said, the weather usually I like to start off. How's the weather over there with you guys?
I haven't been out, but I think it's kind of gloomy today.
Oh, so we're kind of on the same page how that like goes.
Yeah, I don't mind it because I don't have to go anywhere anyway. So
Right on. Right on. Well, like I said, I'm glad you're here chilling out with me. It means it's an honor. For people who don't know, TJ and his band KnifePlay will be performing at South by Southwest here in Austin, Texas, on March 10th through the 19th. It is an amazing festival. If you guys here are in Austin at that time, and perhaps maybe have a South by Southwest pass, go ahead and check out TJ. He'll be there. Do you know what days perhaps you're going to be there? Give or take.
Yeah, we're gonna be there 16, 17, and 18 of March.
So all those days you're going to be rocking out with everyone, huh?
Yep.
Right on. And do you have any other bands you probably want to go to see, check out? Any things? Have you seen the lineup so far?
I'm not that familiar with the lineup. Honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna have time to watch, look for bands I want to see. I feel like we're gonna be playing a lot. But yeah, maybe I should look into that. I don't really know all who's playing, honestly.
Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, without further ado, let's jump into the questionnaires and everything. Let's get it. You ready to go?
Yes.
Right on. So so let's go ahead and start from the top. Where did it start for your band? Perhaps where did the band KnifePlay come from?
Well, I guess I started back in 2015, really. Just making stuff on my own. I had never really made music before. I mean, I played in bands when I was a teenager and stuff, but I never really approached it as an artistic project that I was this deeply invested in. So I guess in around 2015, I started making my own music, pretty much all on my own. And just trying to figure out what I wanted that to look like and sound like. So I took my time, sort of developing what that vision was going to be and stuff. And at the time I was so new to it too. And I had very low confidence about it. So I just took my time, and then slowly started showing these recordings to friends, and they seemed like they wanted to be a part of it. So kind of I would bring people in slowly, make more stuff. That's kind of how we made the first record. And then, as it snowballed, now we're at the point where it's a real band where everyone has their input and their stamp on things. And so yeah, I guess it just came from a place of I needed an outlet of expression in the specific way, and I just kind of finding what felt good for me and what needed to be done for me to I guess get out whatever I felt like I had at the time, combined with at that time I was learning about a whole bunch of music I'd never heard before. So it was just a matching of my actual life and lifestyle at the time matching with all this music that I was finding out. So it's just very inspiring time to kind of springboard a new musical project. So
Right on, and it's been working. I mean, recently, just looking at back at your, because I have in my notes here, you recently went ahead and did an audio tree session, which is amazing. I think in and out of that self, your band's going somewhere, and I think for me personally, especially when it comes to audio trees, they're just amazing just to listen to, and seeing a live performance by you guys and doing that is just some, I don't know, there's something surreal about that, doing that, and you guys clearly doing it now. Again, once again, your guys are at South by too, a huge festival, which um, I think again, it's awesome. I think you guys have clearly shown a name for yourself, and it's going somewhere for sure. Definitely, I'd agree with you on that.
Thank
Um,
you.
but is there anyone or anything that perhaps inspired you to get into the music scene?
I mean, I feel like I've always been a part of a scene to some degree because I mean, where I grew up, there was like small shows at churches and stuff, and I would go see my guitar teacher's band. And this was in literally fifth grade. So there's never been a time where I was like a thinking person with a sense of, identity where I wasn't interested in music in some way. And like, I guess what inspired me would just be being different or being interested in different things than a lot of people, and just I feel like everyone naturally tries to like flock towards other people who they're going to feel more understood by or anything. So I guess it's really just like as simple as that.
No, definitely, definitely, and it makes sense because I mean, again, just everything. I don't know. I guess if you ever heard your music, I think it kind of makes. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it just sounds. How can I put it? Listening to the music and everything that you produce kind of shows who the person you are and what you produce. I don't know if I'm making sense. I know I keep stuttering here, but it's just like what I'm trying to say more so is that when you're listening, you can see the influences that you've had on the music has had on you, and what perhaps it has done for you. If that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
getting
I
anywhere with
mean,
that.
just to respond to that, it's like I feel like when I write music, it comes from this like place of like having to. It's not like it's like it's not really a choice. I've never really felt like it's like a choice for me to do this, and it's always a struggle. And like I feel like what the nature of the music is kind of reflects that in a way. And like I don't know, it's the same thing with like the question you asked about what got me into the scene. It's like it just I don't really see how else, like where else I would have been or what else I would have been involved in. I don't this is kind of seems like the only thing that was there for me ever. So
And definitely, and it kind of also leads into our next question. More so, how did where did your band name come from? Is there a story behind the band name KnifePlay?
yeah, it's funny because when you do a project for this long, a lot of times, I mean, I've grown so much, I feel, and like my initial intention behind like the attitude of the project has changed a lot. So there's a lot of times where I don't really feel like I like the name anymore. I mean, it depends on the day, really. But I guess it's fun. I've been asked about this a lot. I feel like I've never actually told the truth about it, but I get now I will. Um, so like a lot of the stuff that was like driving my writing at the time was I feel like I was surrounded by a lot of like hedonistic activities, and like dangerous, like nihilistic attitudes, like with a lot of the like people and like settings I found myself involved in, and like that was all really new to me at the time. And so I feel like that was like coming into my writing a lot, because it was like there was this indulgence in that, in like drugs and like high risk activity and stuff. And so I felt like I was using the name as a metaphor for that in a way, because it was like this meeting of pleasure and pain, um that, and I felt like that that contrast and the irony of that was like something that was coming into the writing a lot. So yeah.
And do you perhaps do you believe, especially because of the music? Again, once again, I've listening to your music. Do you perhaps maybe the people who are listening to your music can relate to an extent with you? You know, perhaps maybe, you know, again, the way I see it is that your project has become so big and it's so inspirational to a lot of people, especially people who are just smaller bands. And do you perhaps think that the music that you've made is just inspirational, kind of in a way to where you're at then to now, perhaps?
um Sorry, what's the question?
So the question more so is, given that you mentioned that there was like on those points in your life where you were doing these quote unquote knife play how can I put it, actions, do you suppose like it's inspirational to kids to kind of understand, they're not different, how can I put it, because when I grew up it was more so that when I was growing up it was kind of hard to relate to someone. And would you say that the music that you make helps people relate and become, I guess, find who they are?
I mean, if anyone felt like it was doing that for them, that would be the ultimate compliment to us. And, I would feel that's amazing. I think that like we take songs or any type of work of art and we project our own lives onto it. But I do feel like what makes a song have like any type of wide appeal is that there is like a commonality to it. I feel like a lot of the themes that I am drawn to, it's like, I'm drawn to it because it is they are aspects of our experience within like this moment in history and our culture and everything. I mean, a lot of them are just personal songs, there's like love songs and everything else, which is kind of a different thing. But like anything that's not that, it's like it's not created in a vacuum, So I'll think a lot of the stuff I say, or if people are focusing on the words, which I don't know that a lot of them are, but like there's something there because my experience in my life and everything is not unique to me. It's like a very common, I feel. So
No, definitely, yeah. And again, for me, when listening to it, I like to listen to lyrics too a lot. I feel like, and it's just a beautiful thing, when you're talking to the audience, and it's just there's some sort of, to me, especially growing up, I grew up in a very poor place in Texas, and just kind of listening to that and reflecting back on the stuff that I used to do as a kid and stuff, and the way I felt, it helped a lot. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
yeah,
when you have someone who you can relate to in a way, it doesn't make you feel lonely.
totally.
And I guess when I first discovered you, quite honestly, it was more that when I was going to the South by, and I stumbled to your songs, and it's just so beautiful. And the first
Thank
thing
you.
that came to mind was just my experience as a kid, just kind of how I felt. And it was just, I don't know, everything that's been there, it just, I feel like I'm not alone, and I don't know if you can relate on me to some extent. You know, music's kind of a therapy for me
No,
personally.
of course. And I really appreciate that. And like I think that's amazing that you have that connection. Like I feel lucky that anyone would say that to me. So yeah.
No, definitely. So, I mean, like I said, I mean, for you know, I believe that mental health is important, and you know, what they said, you know, I'm just glad that you know there's some people who, you know, I guess that that sense of loneliness, you know, there's always a good thing where you're not alone. You're helping someone all the time. You know, you're with you know you're not alone. You someone knows what you're feeling, and you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean there's artists like that for me. And it's like I feel like when I make anything, I'm trying to achieve that what I feel listening to those artists that I have that strong connection with. I'm trying to reach that feeling with like that's like the goal for me is that someone who has a more objective view of our music would get the feel this high that I get from like, you know, my favorite songs and my favorite bands and so forth.
well, we really do appreciate that. So on behalf of everyone, you know, thank you for you know allowing us to feel you know everything about that. But you know, kind of on the next question, you know, outside of music, you know, what sort of hobbies do you do? You know, do you have any vinyl collections? Any you just you know do you have any sports, anything like that?
Well, I try to read a lot. Um and but I really feel like that is just in service of the huge motivation behind that is just in service of writing better. But I guess the closest thing to a hobby I would have would be taking photos, which I really don't do that much, but I guess since we're on the internet, I'll just advertise my other page right now. I just started this like Instagram called Nothing is the Light, where I'm posting like I have like hundreds of photos that I've taken over the past like 10 years. So I'm just slowly like some of them have been posted other places before, but they're all gone now. So I'm just slowly like dumping them. And there's I've done a few album covers with photos, and I'm hoping to like get more into that a little bit. And I'm trying to maybe do like a print project with that at some point, but I don't that's more of just like a thing I started doing that I was like accidentally into and like kind of good at. Like I don't really know anything about the technology or anything behind it. I just like to find the images that like strike the imagination, you know. But other than that, I pretty much just focus on this band like all the time, probably way too much.
And is there like a process you do when you're taking photos? Perhaps is there something you look for specifically?
Not at all. I mean, and I used to bring my camera everywhere, but now I hardly ever do. It's really just like anything that strikes me. I never know what it's going to be or it's yeah, that's it's a very loose thing. Like I don't feel like I'm like a photographer or anything, but I don't know. I just yeah.
Right on. Yeah. So, you know, from where you know, with the place you grew up in, you know, how has it shaped the way you played music? Perhaps I know we kind of touched on it earlier with where your band name is from, but you know, how has it shaped more so? I guess when the writing process happens, you know, what kind of goes through your mind when you're doing that?
So it's interesting because I'm from Southern Maryland, like a very rural area. Um, and then I've lived in Philadelphia for my entire adult life. And I feel like I didn't really realize this until I was being asked for explanations about stuff on the new album. But I kind of realized that like the dichotomy of those two places has like informed like all of my art in a big way, because I did grow up like pretty sheltered and like privileged, and then I kind of deliberately like placed myself into like, you know, kind of a much harsher environment, and I was like just newly being exposed to like some darker things. So I feel like just dealing with that, and like that all that stuff that I just encountered for the first time as an adult ended up having like, I wasn't desensitized to it as an adult at all. So this like strong emotional effect that a lot of like adult experiences had on me comes through still in my writing, because I feel like it's in such strong contrast to like who I am based on like my upbringing, which was like, you know, I have like, no one's life is perfect and all of that, but like I feel like there was like a strong character of like innocence and wholesomeness that defined like my early existence. So yeah, I don't know, does that make sense?
No, definitely it does. You know,
So it's
like you
kind of like
mentioned.
the mix of like my inner child, you know, dealing with these adult problems, you know.
So definitely, I totally agree. I think that, you know, the way I see it is that the music, especially when it's a project like yours, the music that you create kind of reflects on who they are as a person. Do I kind of make sense there? To
Yeah,
a
of
point where it's like,
course.
you know, I was speaking to someone else, and it's kind of like music is true to the artist. I feel, and he mentioned that it was more so that when you're creating something, it has to be true to yourself, because if it isn't, you're not being genuine to your audience either. And it's more so that when you're creating something, not only are you creating it, you know, you have to enjoy it yourself. And, you know, again, it also kind of wraps up to what I was mentioning earlier, how so it also engages the audience and they can perceive it however they want. And the way I perceive your music is just, it's a beautiful thing that I guess vulnerability, if that kind of makes sense. Perhaps that's why I perceive it as, but it's
Yeah.
just much more that again, it's something that ultimately you have to be comfortable with and you enjoy. And especially, I guess, progressing through your music is just who you are as a person. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I'm perceiving the writing that you display.
No,
I don't know if you have.
I would definitely agree with that, because um well, there's a lot of things I could respond to there, but like I feel when I finish a record, or you know, whether it's a full record or an EP or whatever, I do feel like it's often representative of like a specific time in my life. And I feel like when I get through the record, I do have this feeling of like I've I've put that away now, and like it's a sort of neat way of packaging a phase in my life. And like in terms of you saying vulnerable, it's like I feel like my goal right now is to get more vulnerable in what I'm saying, and be like even more honest and go even further inside myself to find whatever there could be, you know. Because, and going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, where I was saying I felt like it was like not a choice for me, it's like, you know, this is the only way I know how to deal with, you know, harder aspects of my life and everything, like whatever that looks like. And so it's interesting, because these albums do cleanly represent like parts of my life that I almost see that it's like that's neatly packaged now, and like that's then now, and now it's like my brain is just full of the more recent history and the now, and like dealing with that. And then once that's finished, I'll view it the same way. And it's just like a way of, I guess, just I'll probably go a long time doing it this way, you know.
And do you find this the way you create music and listen to it? Do you find it as a way of much more of a therapy for yourself?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's like, yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like, if there wasn't that aspect to it, I probably wouldn't even do it, because I hardly even feel like I identify as like a musician in a way. Like I am, obviously, but I feel like a insecurity with that, because especially compared to my bandmates, like I don't, especially now too, like I don't feel like I'm as inspired by sounds as I was when I first started. And like, it's now that I have a band who's completely on the same page as me, and I love everything they do, it's like I feel like I'm more just focused on the words and the craft of the song. And yeah, it's like, if there was no aspect of like using it to work through things, then there would be no reason for it for me.
Like, yeah. So, kind of now looking back at what you've done, again, once again, you've done a lot. Again, I mentioned earlier, you've successfully had a great episode. I recently just watched it too on Audio Tree and listened to it. So you did amazing there.
Thank you.
My question to you though is, looking back at your previous gigs you've done, how has it shaped the live music performance scenes for you? I mean, again, I keep saying it over and over and over because it's just something that I'm excited for. Um, and I guess kind of to let you know and the audience know, this is my second year at South by. So the first year was amazing, and I know the second year is going to be awesome. And given that you're going to be there too, how does again, looking back at the question though, to read it to you, looking back at your previous tours, how has it shaped you and put the live music scenes into perspective for you? Do you get the little jitters before you go in? How does that feel?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Every time. But I guess like we've been playing for so long now, and I've had so many different people in the band, and like we've kind of like slugged through the local scene, through like highs and lows of that. We've been really bad a lot, and now we're like hopefully a lot better, so I guess it's hard to pin down like and answer that question, but I guess it's just like it feels like the type of music we're doing is catching on a lot more right now, and I feel like our growth has kind of matched that growth and interest as well. Because like when we were really bad, like no one knew about us and stuff, so it was fine, you know. But now that the scene seems to be stronger around specifically what we're doing, I think it helps us have a high morale on a band like operations level. It's easier to get excited about what's going on, and it feels like we're just more locked into like, the live aspect. And like, I mean, we have a long way to go still to sounding how we want to sound, but yeah, I guess just like growing through everything and always just trying to be better.
Right on, yeah. And is there anything? I guess looking back at your previous tours, or rather gigs, let's put it this way: is there anything that's funny or anything that stands out when you think of your gigs? Anything, maybe something memorable, rather?
Um, I think like one of the, I mean, there's just a lot of there was like a lot of like early shows that were really big that we just like bombed completely. So that always like is kind of burned in my memory. But I feel like I don't really hang on any of it too much because I feel like I'm always just looking at the next thing, you know. I'm always just like, what do we want to do now that's, you know, a bigger audience, or like, you know, hoping to play with like a new artist that we like, or, you know, I more look toward the future when it comes to like performing and so forth.
No, right on, definitely. And let's see. So let's see. Let's look at the other one. So the themes that. So looking back at your music now, you know, what are some themes you try to follow? Perhaps do you have anything that you look at and say, you know what, let's tackle this on this album, let's tackle this on this certain song, or is it more so again where you kind of it's how you feel at the current time when you're creating that album?
Yeah, it's really just a product of reflecting on usually like recent history of, you know, things that may have happened, or like just processing like my general outlook. um I don't go into it with like, because whenever I go to write a song, it's kind of like it just happens. So I don't really have like a whenever I have a predetermined thing, like I want to write a song about this, like it usually doesn't work out that way. It's usually just like this sheer necessity thing in my brain. But I feel like my perspective is consistent, but also like naturally I am growing and evolving. So like, yeah, I mean, I don't try to follow anything, but it just so happens that like, you know, there's consistent themes that come up because it's that's just where I am and who I am. So,
Definitely, yeah. And so here's the hardest question I'm going to ask you today. So be prepared. Ready?
sure.
So talking about your songs, if you can have three songs that represent you as a band, what would you pick out of the ones you've already currently have? Now it could be ones that you have right now on your say Spotify, Apple Music, or perhaps if you want to tease people, you can say your newer songs.
Hmm.
It's totally up to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to just pick three like that. I mean, if I had to pick three, it would be like our three newest songs that aren't out yet, for sure. But at the same time, I feel like on different records, there's different songs that might have been written in the later portion of the process that like allude to what's might be going on in the next record more. So that is a very hard question. But I will say that like with the new stuff that we're doing, I feel like because I have a better control over writing, you know, better, but I'm not saying that I've figured it out or anything like that, but I feel like there's a lot more intentionality behind it to where like we're making music. This is the first time I made music to where I'm like, yeah, if I just heard that, I would definitely like it. So that's why I feel like it's representative of us, because we're finally getting to that feeling. And of course, it's all new. So maybe by the time the record's done, whenever that may be, we won't have the feeling anymore. But that's, yeah.
Gotcha, definitely. So so right now, let's see. So right now, what? So here's another thing. What are the artists you listen to currently now? Can you name a few that you perhaps inspires you when you're writing songs, if there's any,
Yeah.
or rather, if there's just artists you listen to in general right now? What are that's more so it.
One of my favorites would be all of the work from Matthew Lee Cothran, who's done Elvis Presley, Coma Cinema, and his own name, and he has another project called Going Nowhere as well. But he's probably one of my especially biggest lyrical inspirations, and like I think the biggest reason that I love his music is because you can feel how like it's like the writing is just, it comes from so deep inside of him from my perspective, and like it's so far beyond the curtain of like mainstream perspectives. It's like it's just like the rawest expression of like what I think is like humanity in like a it's like an uncorrupted pure expression of humanity in this way that also deals with the aspects of like how the outside world influences how we feel. It's just, I think he's an artist who's very in touch with how people feel in this way that like people are like afraid to go to, and like just to be consistently unlocking that door in your writing as often as he does is like, it's a complete mystery to me, because I guess like, and I thought about it on this other song I listened to yesterday called Winter is Blue by Vashti Bunyan, and like it's certain songs that I just see as like unlocking this door of like complete, it's like a just completely perfect writing, completely honest, and completely embodying like this certain feeling in such a graceful way. And like, so I don't even say I definitely have my favorite artist, but I really just like, it's like that feeling that I'm looking for and that I'm striving towards, which I think is very rare for me to get to it on that level, but like some people do it very consistently, and that's who I admire the most.
Right on. So I guess maybe going to the next question, perhaps, speaking of artists, which artists would you like to collaborate with?
Honestly, like I feel like my bandmates are the people that I have the most interest in collaborating with. I'm still getting comfortable giving other people liberty with like the songs I write, and a lot of, and like I said, I'm insecure about like identifying as a musician, and like I think that's why a lot of my stuff is like I started as like doing it all on my own, and like I don't know, it's a very careful, delicate thing for me that I'm not able to let just anyone in on that. And I hope that as I go on, I will become better with that and be able to access creativity like more comfortably and more like confidently. But as of now, to me, it's like a sacred thing. Everyone in my band is like my best friends, except our drummer, who I just met like 2 weeks ago. But it no one comes to mind off the top of my head, because like these people I'm working with, I feel like we have a really strong connection, and I can't imagine there being a better scenario than that. Even if it would be my favorite artist or whoever it would be, just because someone's my favorite and I think they're the best doesn't mean that we would work well together.
That I'm not shitting you. I think that was the most honest and well said answer I've ever heard on that. I think I think that is something, again, I mean, I didn't realize it. I don't think when I was talking to other people, I don't realize it. You have to have that special connection. And with that connection you have with your bandmates, that's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I mean, like, especially when I show them a song, there's always this, like, it's extremely vulnerable for me. So it's like, if I don't know, like, it takes a lot for me to be comfortable opening up that to people, you know. So sorry to interrupt you with that.
Oh no, you're good. I mean, again, I think that was the realest answer I've gotten, and I mean, it's beautiful. I think that's something that I think a lot of bands strive to have. And I mean, as long as you believe what you're doing is right, and the connection you have is strong, I'm more than certain it's going to only get better from here on out, and I believe that very strongly. And I'm happy. So you mentioned that here for a guy that gets a little bit more fun. You mentioned that you're working on some projects. Um, Perhaps is there anything you want to talk about that? Anything you want to tease us on it? How is that working for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to say about it now. We're just working on making a new record. The reason I would say I think I'm particularly excited about it and what makes it different from the way we've done it in the past is that, like, it is like deeply a band effort. Like, one of our newer members, Johanna, is a audio engineer, so she's been helping us record this stuff, like these demos. And we're just taking our time, and I feel like my previous two records, I was kind of more just like throwing shit at the wall in a way, and like tapping into like aesthetics that inspired me. But now I feel like we are all kind of in touch with this specific feeling that's driving the music, and there's a lot more intentionality behind it. And I think it's going to be really special once it's done one day.
I'm glad. I'm really am happy to hear that. And I guess if you can tease a little bit more, do you suppose that maybe there'll be some songs on that new LP that will be premiered at South by? Maybe play there?
Yeah, we want to do at least one for sure. Probably just one actually, but it's we're still working on the kinks on stuff, so it's unknown at the moment. But
I will be
gonna
I will
try.
I will be eagerly waiting for that when we get going. But kind of now, reflecting on everything you've done. You mentioned, since a kid to now. Looking back at your younger self, what words of advice would you give to yourself? Anything?
Um, I mean, it's hard because I don't really feel like I would change anything. Um, but I guess just, don't be scared. And I guess if I had to change anything, I would probably have said yes to more things. And I mean, I did a fair amount of life in my early adulthood, but just don't worry about fear, and try to be in the moment, I guess, and everything will come together. I still like, I feel like I would tell my this morning self that, but it's like, it's just hard to hold on to that a lot of the time. But I'm grateful for everything, whatever it may be. So
Right on. Well, I again, once again, I really do appreciate you coming on by. That has been all the questions that I wanted to know, and perhaps the audience. I appreciate you just taking the time, relax, chilling out here with us. I will speak to you a little bit after we close this little interview here. But is there anything else you want to say? Any closing thoughts or statements? And you want to shout out your mom, dad, pets, anything like that?
I guess just if you don't know us, follow us on Instagram for all updates, and check out our music anywhere you want. And anyone who watched this because they already knew what this was, thank you so much, and I appreciate you.
Right on. Well, TJ, I appreciate you once again. We look forward to seeing you here in Austin. I guarantee you, if you do eat, meat or anything like that, I'll take you. I'll definitely take you all on your brand to go eat some good ass barbecue here.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'll be in touch
So,
with you. We got to do that.
all right, man. Well, like I said, I appreciate you, and